All right. Well, thank you all for coming in tonight. I really appreciate it. I know you braved the cold. This is our last State of the Schools presentation, the last stop on the listening tour. We've been at Center of Hope, at the Ravenna Assembly of God. We were at the Ravenna Township Hall yesterday, and then tonight here. We're also going to live stream it for anybody who doesn't have the opportunity to get out and see it, or wants to revisit it. Out on the table are some bookmarks that show you what we've been doing as part of our strategic plan, as well as some index cards and some pens. So if you have questions and we can't answer them here tonight, if you put your contact information on there in the question, I'll get back to you if we can't answer them, if they're not answered during the presentation or through the question and answer. So one of the reason we're doing this is because of our strategic plan. We recently completed a 5-year strategic plan, and one of the items that they really concentrated on, the community and the district together, was to increase community engagement and community outreach. So we wanted to bring a state of the schools to you all so that you have some idea of what's happening in the school district, especially the great stuff. We all hear about, stuff you don't want to hear about, but this is the great stuff that's happening in the school district, and we have made giant leaps and bounds. My name is Laura Hebert, and I'm the superintendent, and later on you'll be joined by Candy Lucott, who is the treasurer, and we'll go over, okay. Let's turn it on. Now that we're here, it's like highfalutin. We're going to learn about the district, the progress and the challenges, have time to ask questions, identify any barriers to more community engagement, and give everybody an opportunity to have their voices heard if that is desired. We're going to go over the instructional and operational overview of the district. We'll have a financial overview and then questions and answers. One of the things we know that is people move to small towns because they want 3 things. They want the ability to have some kind of entertainment factor, places to go to eat, a movie theater, that kind of stuff. They want affordable housing, and lastly, they want good schools. So my job as a superintendent is to ensure that good schools is something that's on our horizon or isn't already in place. But I wanted to start with demographics because I think people are sometimes surprised at the demographics of our school district. We have about 1,950 students on any given day. That changes, it's fluid, people come, people go, but basically preschool through 12, 1,900 or so students. 100 of those are preschool. As usual, about 52% male, 50-50 split between male and female. We have a 68% white population, 28% black population, 4% Hispanic, 1% Asian, which makes for a 33% racial enrollment. I don't know what people think. I think people think it's different than that, but that is our actual demographics as of this year. It does say we're 100% economically disadvantaged. That does not mean that 100% of our students come from an economically disadvantaged household. What it means is we have a high percentage of economically disadvantaged students that we qualify for free and reduced lunch from the government. And so they categorize us as 100% free and reduced lunch, or 100% economically disadvantaged. We have a 23% special education population. The state average is 13%. So if you know anything about special education, a lot of times those are high-cost students, and they deserve every single accommodation, every piece of help that they need, but it costs the district money. So if you know that we are 23% versus 13%, a lot of our money goes to or special education teachers or special education resources. You'll see a chronic absenteeism rate, 43%. That is not unusual across the state or even across the nation. It's unsettling that 43% of our students miss 10 or more days of school a year. But in this year alone, we've decreased that by 13% by January. So we're doing a good job of getting kids back in the classroom. We still need help from parents, of course, but COVID made it easier for people to think they could work at home, they could go to school at home, they could order their meals from home, everything's easier at home. So it's hard to convince some kids learning is better in person at school. And finally, our graduation rate is 90%. 90.7 actually, and that is up from 4 years ago where it was below 70%. So we have made huge strides in making sure that our kids graduate with a plan and are ready for the next stage of their life. So this is our strategic plan. You'll see two things on here. First at the top is the mission and vision statement. Ravenna, and this is created in collaboration with our community. This isn't something central office came up with or I thought was a good idea. There's several of you who sat in on those strategic planning meetings, and as a group, we came up with this mission statement. Ravenna, an inclusive learning community, embracing diversity and equipping all students for success. We didn't say Ravenna in collaboration with the city. We just lumped Ravenna, the schools, and Ravenna, the city, and Ravenna, the township, together so that we have this one big entity trying to ensure this for our kids. And then each child every day, one step at a time, is the vision statement. Each child was purposeful. You could say every child, but that is very broad. When you say each child, you're talking to every kid and addressing every kid's need. Every kid, each kid, every day, one step at a time. We want our kids to be future ready. We want to increase community outreach and engagement, and we want to show that we have a belief in all students, whoever they are. This is the bigger schematic of our strategic plan. Future ready, community outreach, belief in all students is there, but you can see we want to get them there by ensuring that they succeed, that they learn, and that they are loved and served, and that they leave school knowing how to love and serve others. This is the only school district I know where the community thought loving and serving other people was important. And I think that's one of the things I love about Ravenna. They believe in loving and serving, not just getting the best grade or getting the best job, but how are we going to take care of one another. So I'm going to talk a little bit about how we're making that strategic plan happen. And I told an earlier group, I feel a little bit like the Penn State coach. We are, you know how they do that, we are Penn State. And trust me, I went to Ohio State, so I do not really have a lot of love for Penn State, but we are implementing program to ensure college and career readiness skills. That is in an effort to get our kids future ready. We have something called the 3 E's program at the high school, where they meet once a week, and they self-select whether they want to be employed when they graduate, whether they want to enroll in a 2 or 4 year college, or whether they want to be enlisted in the military. And during their weekly meetings, they meet with recruiters, they write college essays, they have application time, they fill out the FAFSA if they need help with that. They have all kinds of support to make sure they're on path, on their journey correctly for enrollment, enlistment, or employment. We also, though, know that there's several kids who don't know what they want to do. They may graduate at the end of the school year and then the next day have absolutely no idea what's next. They won't have a job. They haven't said anything about being in the military. They haven't applied. We need to worry about those kids. They are at risk of not being participants in society, right? They may have a college degree, a high school degree, but they're at risk. So we've identified 15 kids, and together with our Business Advisory Council, we are launching something called the Champs Breakfast Series, where the Business Advisory Council is going to meet with them once a month. I was joking that the guys are going to feed them breakfast, make pancakes, and it's a guy thing. Guys think that they are really good at breakfast, evidently, because the women are all like, right, okay, whatever. But anyway, the guys are going to make them breakfast. We have a couple women in there as well, making sure they do it right. And then we're going to serve the kids breakfast. We're going to do some team building and ice breaking, and then provide them once a month with the skills to be ready for their next step. The last month, we are going to have job interviews. We're going to prepare them for those interviews, and hopefully by graduation, they will be employed in some fashion. That's what we're looking for, so that those kids are not left behind. But we also do not want to ignore our high flyers, our kids that are going to college who want to do the right thing right away by going to college. In their mind, that's what's important. So we are starting something called the Renaissance Scholars. Art, manufacturing, and business are going to collaborate as 3 content areas to help kids understand how to collaborate out in the real world in one of those business pathways. If you think about it, and I was an engineer for 7 years before I went into education, engineers can't talk to artists, even though you need an artist to make sure that whatever they've designed is sellable, right? And an engineer can't talk to a marketing person because they just know what they want the thing to do. They don't know what they think it should look like, or if it's people want it because it looks good in their house. So we want to teach kids to talk to each other, understand those pathways, so that when they go to college, when they get out in the real world, they'll be better prepared to take on real world solutions. And our businesses are going to help us with problems that our kids are going to solve collaboratively. We are also bringing back some specific advanced placement courses. We have a lot of College Credit Plus, and if you know about College Credit Plus, it is a great thing for kids. They get college level credit free during high school. We've had kids graduate from Ravenna High School and go on and be sophomores or juniors in college the next day because they've been able to earn that many credits. That is a great thing. Some kids, though, depending on the college that they're going to, need a more rigorous program. For instance, I'll just use history as an example. If you take a college credit history here at Ravenna High School, you're using the same book, getting the same lessons, taking the same test as a regular high school kid here at Ravenna. You're getting a college credit for it. I don't know how prepared you are then for the next level of college work if you're in a rigorous program. So we want to provide kids who want that level of rigor that opportunity by offering simultaneously advanced placement classes. Future Ready also means we want to give programming that's aligned to student outcomes in academics, extracurriculars, so that they are ready for post-high school success. We know the whole student is more important or as important as just an academic basis. So we make sure we have visual and performing arts. We have worked very hard this year to kind of raise the level of competition. They're going out to compete in music and artist competitions at the Governor's Academy or Governor's Show, the music down at the state of Ohio. So we are trying very hard to increase expectations, raise the level of competition in our visual and performing arts. We also just recently went through an athletic summit or an athletic audit, which is going to lead to a summit, which we want to raise our athletic program to the next level as well. So we're looking at all of our programs, all of our sports, nuts, soup to nuts, to make sure that we are giving them a perfect opportunity to succeed. And then we are offering separate transition to work courses or opportunities. We have a class called Career-Based Instruction, CBI, for our general education students. They take a class where they get 3 credit hours for going to work. So they work 4 days a week, they get 3 credit hours for that work, and 1 day a week they're in the classroom learning about how to translate their skills to the next level. Last year we had 9 kids in that program. This year we have 30 kids. And they're working in Ravenna. 11 of those 30 kids are employed right here in Ravenna. So we're hoping to build the workforce of Ravenna, keep our young people in Ravenna. We also have multiple transition programs for our special ed students. We have grade 23. Kids that are special ed can stay in school until their 23rd year, till they're 23 years old. So some kids will stay in school. We will set them up with a volunteer program 4 days a week. Other kids can work and get paid 5 days a week, but they're still in school getting the supports that they need. We also have option 4 at Maplewood, where they get job coaching. So everybody has an opportunity to be future ready, regardless of where you land in that school strata. We also are trying to make sure our kids are taken care of socially and emotionally. We all know, or we've all heard, that kids are really struggling, right, socially and emotionally, especially after COVID. There's a lot of isolation. Kids came out of preschool not learning how to even ask others to play. A lot of technology dependency. I know as parents, many of you are worried about that constant, where's my phone, where's my iPad? And so we know that, and we know that there's a trickle-down effect from that. So we have started some curriculums. One is called Strong Start, one is called Mosaic. Strong Start is for preschool through 5th grade, where we actually teach kids how to enter play, how to go up and ask another child, can I play with you? We tell them how to, or teach them how to solve conflict. Mosaic is the same thing for middle school, a little bit 5 through 8. It's, higher level of conflict management. If you have a middle school kid, sometimes 7th grade is hard, and they struggle. So we want to make sure we give them a curriculum, we give them ways that they can solve their problems before they go down some slippery slope and get somewhere where we can't take care of them as well. We also have MTSS, which is a data collection program, which allows us to intervene before they fail academically, before they get in trouble behaviorally, before they start missing too much school. Ravenna High School has these small groups where they can feel safe to talk about things that are happening to them, things that they're thinking about. We have hired on our own dime a district therapist who, within the first week of working, had a full caseload between Brown Middle School and Ravenna High School. We also work with 2.5 children advantaged social workers. We have clubs available for everything that a kid could possibly want. We have small group support through high school counselors, and we have one-to-one counseling services for our kids. So that's what we're doing in terms of making sure our kids are future ready. Does anybody have any questions before I move into the next pillar, which is community outreach, about anything to dealing with making sure our kids are future ready? Nope? Okay. I'm thankful I'm so verbose, I guess. Okay. Community outreach and engagement. We are trying to instill collective and individual pride in Ravenna. We heard loud and clear that the people that were part of the strategic planning committee want our students to feel pride in being Ravenna Ravens. They want their kids to stay in the community. They want their kids to give back to the community, and we're trying to figure out how we can do that. One thing we're doing is Mr. Wonderly's government class is working with the state government to come up with a Ravens vanity plate. Ohio State has a vanity plate. Well, Ravenna's going to have a vanity plate. They're working very hard to get that done. So pretty soon you'll have a Raven on your car. I know it. We're working with the city and anybody else who wants to listen to us to put a Raven on the water tower versus just Ravenna. We have started the Ravenna Education Foundation, which is a group of community members and alumni who are interested in supporting the district financially, but also through other resources. We have recently begun the Athletes of Honor, where we inducted 10 former athletes. I'm going to get this wrong. People came as far away as California and Arizona to take part in this Athletes of Honor induction ceremony. We had a 5K fun run. We also are going to make that every other year, so it's against the Hall of Fame inductions. We give out Game Changer Awards to students, to staff, to volunteers in the community. Each year we host a back-to-school bash. I'm sure many of you have been to that. Last summer, over 700 people came through that, and they left with any resource they could possibly need or want: books, paper, writing utensils, food. We have special education transition night, and this year we initiated a family walk instead of a father walk. We wanted to be more inclusive. A lot of fathers are not necessarily in the family or not mothers, so we want a family. And a family can look like whatever a family looks like. And we had a great turnout for this at all the schools. We're also trying to instill collective and individual pride in Ravenna by making sure we identify a week in November where we do family involvement activities across the board. We have a strong partnership with the PTO. We participate in the balloon affair every year. We win all kinds of prizes for our floats. We work with the Ben Curtis Foundation and with Raven Packs to make sure our kids who are economically disadvantaged and food insecure don't go home on the weekends without any food. So we have that. Those are many ways that we work with the community to instill pride. We're also making sure we're having equitable access to services. And I chose to concentrate a little bit on preschool. Many of you don't know that preschool is not a mandatory thing. A school district does not have to offer a preschool. And if you do offer a preschool, it doesn't have to be a 5-star preschool, which is what we are. A 1-star preschool is basically a babysitting service. A 5-star preschool is an educational institution. Preschool, we believe, sets the future for our kids. It costs a lot of money, $700,000 a year. But it's so important if our kids are going to be reading on grade level when they're 3. We need to get them in. We need to work with them every day so that they're prepared for the next level. But we've also found that preschool is a tough time for parents because they have a hard time getting kids experiences. Many of us remember as kids going with our parents to the aquarium, going with our parents maybe to a concert, to a playground, to whatever. Many of our kids don't have those experiences. Parents don't have the transportation. They don't have the wherewithal to buy the tickets. So what we're doing is once a month, preschool is setting up experiences for our parents to join our staff, and they have gone to the adaptive playground in Akron. They've come here for a concert. They've gone to the art museum. So we are providing them transportation, we are chaperoning them, and we're helping parents help kids have more experiences and be more future ready, be more ready for the next level. We also do individual family orientations at preschool. We've all been to school orientations where you sit in an auditorium just like this and you listen to the bell schedule and what's going to happen if you do this. But if you're sending your 3-year-old or your 4-year-old to school, you want a little bit more of a kumbaya experience, right? I mean, your little kid's going to school and they're 3. So we make sure that we do family preschool orientations. The family, anybody in that family can come. They meet with the teacher one-on-one, and they have appointments and they go through that way so that the kids, but mostly the parents, feel more comfortable with leaving their kid at school the next time. We make sure that we have worked with King Kennedy and Skeels. Many people don't know that we have a sliding scale for tuition. It is $100 a month, but you can qualify based on whether or not you're economically disadvantaged or not, all the way down to 0. Many of our community didn't know that, and so they weren't sending their kids to preschool, which then impacted them when they got to kindergarten. This way, we've beefed up our preschool population. We have all become Purple Star schools, which means we've been recognized by the state for the care we take with our military families. And we've worked really hard to recruit, maintain, and retain a diverse population of teachers because we want our kids to have the best of the best. CAMRA is an organization that we belong to that allows us to recruit those great teachers. You've also seen, I'm sure, out and about in May, our high schoolers in their bright yellow shirts doing a day of service. All right, that's another way that we have fostered community outreach. We have a student advisory group on education that does community projects. They work with me. We meet once a month. This month we're going to Rotary to present to the Rotary what our kids are doing. Next month we're going to Kiwanis. We did an athletic audit, which required or allowed us to meet through focus groups, surveys, and individual one-on-one interviews with the community. We meet one-on-one with what we call community opinion leaders. We just call parents up sometimes or elected officials just to get their idea on how they think the district is doing. We have a business advisory council and a faith-based advisory council that advises us on what we can do for our kids. And then we also have 4 separate advisories, one for gifted, special ed, facilities, and finances, where we meet, I would say, every other month or at least quarterly to talk about how we provide information to those groups and take recommendations from those groups. Does anybody have any questions about any of that? I know I'm going through this really fast. It's a lot of information, but we're doing a lot of stuff here. And the community, I don't think, sometimes knows all the stuff we're doing. This is my favorite section, the belief in all students. It's hard to be an educator and not believe in your kids. And we call them our kids. They're all our kids. We are providing a strong foundation of core academic content through support. And the first way you can see that is through the state report card improvements. I tell this story 2 years ago when Cleveland.com posted the state testing results, and Ravenna was way down on the list. And it was a Sunday morning, and I sent an email to my entire team. I lost my mind. I said, we are not going to be here again. This is not going to happen. We were a 1-star school 2 years ago. We've moved from 1 star to 2.5 in less than 2 years, which is an incredible lift and a great, it just shows how hard our teachers and our administrators are working every single day. So while we're still not where we want to be, we are closing that gap. And the gap on the subgroups, special ed, racial, all of those are closing. So we are doing great work. We have a 5-star preschool, like I said, and a full-day kindergarten. Many people don't know we also don't have to offer full-day kindergarten. We only have to offer half-day kindergarten. We have after-school tutoring. We have athletic study tables. We have Raven Pride Time, which is time during the day for intervention, and win time at the elementary schools. We bought a new curriculum, Amplify and CKLA, and that reading curriculum has been a game changer. Our kids are entering into 3rd grade ready to read. They know more vocabulary than, I tell that story. Native Americans used to wear the shoulder bag, and it was called a parfleche. Who knows that? But now everybody wears the shoulder bag, right? That's in style. So we were in the school, and this little kindergartner went up to this woman and said, "Oh, I really like your parfleche." We had no idea what the kid was talking about. But here they've embedded something they learned about history into what's happening today. That's a whole opportunity to talk about cycles and trends and patterns. So that's really been a game changer. We have trained our staff K through 4 on dyslexia. We're getting ready to train them again the next level next year. And we have changed how we are identifying gifted students so that we can make sure that we are more inclusive of our kids and include them in clusters of kids who can learn at a higher rate quicker. Just because they don't test well doesn't mean they're not gifted. So we want to make sure we find that out. We're also using data decision-making to make sure we understand student needs. ABRE and MTSS are both ways to use data to say, are kids getting in trouble more? Are they missing school more? Are their grades going down? So we use data to do that. M-Class is is a way to provide reading skills or identify deficiencies in reading skills like fluency, phonemic awareness, to make sure our kids are on track to learn to read using the new Amplify curriculum. And finally, we are trying to build a culture of support for mental health, social and emotional learning, making sure we're responsive to what our kids need. This is a big piece to work on because our kids come to us sometimes with trauma, a lot of times with trauma, and that manifests in the classroom. And that's a lot of times where we catch it and we have to deal with it. So like I said, we've hired a mental health therapist. We also have a behavioral therapist on staff. We have social workers. We're planning a mental fitness assembly for 9th graders so that they can be proactive in the face of social media and what it does to their mental health. We are intentionally transitioning kids to and from different grades. When you're in 5th and 6th grade and you move into the middle school, it is scary. A 5th grader going into the middle school, even a 6th grader, because now they're down at the other end, away from the 5th grade, like cocoon. They don't want anybody watching them open their locker for the first time or figuring out where their lunch table is or any of that stuff. So we give them a day to themselves. Same thing with 9th grade. We give the 9th graders a day to themselves to figure out who their teachers are, to understand where things are in the building. And that has made a big difference in just how they've functioned that first week of school. We, like I said, we have the SEL curriculums. Our advisory down at the middle school works to put small groups together of like-minded kids. If you like fishing, advisory is intervention for academics. So BMS advisory makes sure kids who need interventions have that time through advisory, through a small group so they're not overwhelmed. And then we have school counselors. And I put these in. This is really eye-opening. This is 13 days in December, what our school counselors did. We only went to school 13 days. This is 2 counselors who serve K through 4. So this is 3 buildings, okay? 2 women, 3 buildings, 12 days. In those 12 days, they taught 38 lessons. And for instance, kindergartners learned about empathy, 4th grade learned about gratitude, but they taught 38 different lessons. They held 82 different individual counseling sessions. They did 3 threat assessments. We often wonder, what could you possibly do a threat assessment on with a first grader? First graders say things like, I want to hurt myself. And then you have to do a threat assessment. And you need to do a threat assessment. So they're teaching lessons. They're doing individual counseling while they're doing a threat assessment. They run 12 small groups. Could be children of divorced parents. Could be children of incarcerated parents. Could be grief counseling. It could be kids who just get in trouble. I mean, it could be whatever, right? But they run 12 different groups that have 20 different lessons than those original 38, and 42 students are served in that. They do referrals, and they had 87 separate parent contacts. That's 2 women in 4 schools in 12 days. I mean, if I had a lot of money, we would have more counselors, and these numbers would be even higher. This is the middle school, gave us the same thing, 184 counseling sessions. They do referrals just like them. They do small groups. They're doing the same thing at the middle school. High school gives it to you a little bit differently, and you got to remember high school, you add into their thing 2 women, 4 grades. They're also doing the administrivia of getting kids ready to go to college, of filling out applications, of doing all that. So if you look up there, 225 individual sessions, 11 groups, while they're sending transcripts, while they're doing applications to Maplewood, while they're answering emails and phone calls. They met with 16 parents in 12 days, and they also took 73 phone calls. But in that building, they did 5 threat assessments in 12 days. They also did 2 conflict mediations. They enrolled 1 new student. I would hate to be a new student in December. That's a tough time to come to school. But they sent a total of 490 emails. 2 women, 12 days. I mean, our counselors, our kids need our counselors. We are doing great work with them, but there's even more need out there for that. So we also have Passion Friday. This is the fishing club. Passion Friday at the middle school. They meet with kids who have like-minded interests like fishing, like baking, like art. High school has Club Friday. We've initiated restorative practices so that when kids get in trouble, they're not just consequenced. They need to know what harm their action actually caused to other people. Maybe if it's vandalism, to the actual object. They need to understand the harm that their action caused and how can they make up for that harm. Because we don't want them to just come back in 5 days and do it again, right? So we are working really hard with restorative practices, grades K through 12. And check-in, check-out is one way that is part of restorative practices where kids identify a trusted adult in the building. They can check in with that teacher in the morning. They can check out in the afternoon. All of this is stuff we still need to work on, but we've started to do a really good job with that. Does anybody have any questions about any of that? Because now I'm going to turn it over to our treasurer, Candy Lucott, who's going to give you kind of a financial overview of the district. And I'm hopeful, as you listen to her go through it, you remember what I just went over in terms of what we're offering and how much more we could possibly offer based on that. Yes, sir.
Hello, my name's John Green.
Hi, John.
Hi, how are you?
Good.
You talk about the students and everything like that. I hear from these vocational teachers, high school, middle school, elementary school, they're getting brutalized daily by these children. These children have no consequences for their actions.
Well, I would disagree. Only that I'm sure that kids are, I'm not sure. I know we have tough kids. We have a lot of tough kids who behave badly. We have a lot of great kids who behave great. I would disagree that kids have no consequences. Restorative practices is one way that we do address some behaviors, but there's still kids getting expelled. There's still kids being suspended. There's still kids being disciplined on a daily basis. It is harder than when I was teaching. 100%, it is harder. And I think there's a lot of I don't want to say blame to COVID, but that 3 years really changed education, really changed expectations. And I just really even think in society, things are so much different now that we're trying to regroup and get back to where we can do it the way we used to do it. I appreciate that our teachers are taking a lot on the chin day in and day out, and we work really hard to support them. And, that's the answer I can give you, but I would disagree that they're not getting any consequence, because they're sitting in my office and they're getting expelled. So not all of them, for sure, because my goal is to make sure every kid has an opportunity to be in a classroom learning something, or I wouldn't be much of an educator otherwise.
Just to witness the actions of children at sporting events is terrible.
I don't disagree.
If I acted that way as an adult, I would be a sport at an event. And these children there needs to be something done. Administrators or somebody to protect.
I don't disagree, and we're working really hard to change children's behavior. You're welcome. Candy, you ready?
Good evening. I'm Candy Lucat. I'm the district treasurer, and I'd like to give a financial overview of our district this evening. It started with our 5-year forecast. Our Board of Education approved our 5-year forecast at their October 23rd regular business meeting this year. That 5-year forecast showed us as deficit spending. If you're familiar with the forecast, you know it gives you 3 years of historical data, and then it gives you the current fiscal year based on our budget, and then it gives you 4 years into the future so that you can plan accordingly for your finances to match our educational programs going forward. The forecast that was approved this year in October showed a low cash balance next fiscal year, which is fiscal 2025. That year, we end with about $40,000, and that's about as low as you can go and still balance a budget. The following year, in fiscal 26, our forecast shows us with a $2 million deficit. So that's taking any reserve that we would have available, which we would not have a budget reserve going into 26, and then our revenue falling $2 million short of our expenses. In November, as a result of that, our community was asked to support a 6.9 mil 5-year current expense levy. That levy would have generated $2,674,000 a year for 5 years, and that would have addressed that deficit in our forecast. But our community did not approve that levy, and as a result, our Board of Education met again in November to assess the forecast and approved a series of resolutions. First, a resolution of necessity, and then in December, a resolution to proceed with a levy on the March primary ballot. And that is an emergency levy, again, for $2.7 million for 5 years. It would begin collection, though, a year later. If you're familiar with how your property taxes work, the levy, when passed in 2024, calendar year 24, is applied to your 2024 taxes, which are collected in 2025. So an emergency levy approved on the March primary would begin collection in 2025. This is the 5-year forecast summary that our Board of Education used to make these decisions. The top row shows you our total revenues each year. The next row shows you our total expenditures. And then finally, that deficit spending. So it shows you in fiscal 24, we have about a balanced budget. But going forward, we'll be drawing on that cash balance that we go into each year with. And you can tell from this chart that our revenues remain fairly flat over the 5-year forecast, but our expenses continue to increase, and that's the primary cause of our deficit spending. Our 5-year forecast focuses on our general funds. Our general funds are our primary funding source for our operations. And it's about $29 million this year. Our largest funding source is state revenue. That comes to us through a formula called the Fair School Funding Plan. And the state worked with school district treasurers and legislators to develop that plan. The district receives a per pupil allocation, and again, it is our largest funding source. The state of Ohio gets their funds from income tax and from sales tax. The next largest portion of our revenue comes from property taxes. That's our local sources. Real estate taxes make up 37% of our revenue each year, and that shows you the importance of our community and community support for these programs. We also get some revenue from other sources, other state sources. We get some reimbursements for special education costs, for Medicaid costs, and then some other local sources in the form of rent and fees. On the other side of our forecast are our expenditures. And again, $29 million worth of expenditures this year, and the largest chunk of that are salary and benefits. I always say our district is a people organization. Our students rely on our faculty and staff every day to provide that high quality education. And whether it's the first face that you see when you're getting on the school bus in the morning, or it's our office staff when you're greeted when you enter one of our buildings, our administrators, our secretaries, our teachers, our paraprofessionals, these salaries make up that red portion, 56% of our budget. Really is their salaries, any overtime, any substitute costs, any extra hours, any professional development that supports their teaching and learning. And then again, the fringe benefits that correspond with our salaries. You'll see we have medical and dental coverage. The district pays a portion of that premium in an effort to attract and retain qualified staff. We also pay workers' compensation insurance out of that fringe benefit. So you see other categories on there. The third largest category of expenses is something called purchase services. And purchase services are those special education contracts that support individual student learning from their individual education plans. So if a student requires some additional occupational therapy, physical therapy, speech therapy, those services are through a contract with an outside agency. The district also hires nurses through Akron Children's Hospital, and that's a large contract as well. But purchase services includes things like utility services for the district, so electricity, gas, trash, recycling services in our buildings. So again, that's the third largest portion of our budget. What you don't see on this chart is a lot of supplies and materials or a lot of equipment. And that's primarily because our equipment comes to us, we pay for that with permanent improvement funds. So we have a separate funding stream for our books, our buses, our buildings, the books being Chromebooks, so that technology that we use in the classroom, and the permanent improvement levy funds support those initiatives. So you don't see a lot of that coming out of our general fund. That's why you don't see it on this graph. Our 5-year forecast is exclusively reporting on our general funds. When we develop the 5-year forecast, we have to make some assumptions going forward, what our revenue and expenses will be. And we use some indicators, again, that Fair School Funding Plan. We have determined that our enrollment that had been declining will most likely become more stable going forward. So we saw a decline during COVID, but we believe that has leveled off. So our forecast assumes a stable enrollment and a good economic outlook for the state of Ohio to continue to fund that formula. So they can at any time decide to send us less money per pupil based on their own general fund budget. But we know that they have a pretty strong economic outlook right now. The next assumptions we make are about our property taxes. We determine that we have a very conservative valuation increases in Portage County. This was not an update year for Portage County, so we saw a 1% increase in total valuation overall in the district. It went from about $385 million to about $391 million, so 1% increase. Our update year is next year, so we may see an increase greater than 1% next year, but we still forecast that to be very conservative. This year was actually an update for some surrounding counties, so you may have heard about increases in Geauga County or Summit County, but we did not see that this year. Another thing to keep in mind is the impact of House Bill 920 on our Class 1 and Class 2 properties. A couple of things. Class 1 properties are our residential and agricultural properties where people live. And our Class 2 are our commercial properties where people work. So those are the restaurants and retail businesses, manufacturers in Ravenna. And House Bill 920 was a piece of legislation that was passed in the 1970s when inflation was very high. And it was an effort to control the inflation on properties so that your property taxes would not increase at the same rate that your property value did increase. So as a result of House Bill 920, what we see at the school district is while property values increase, millage is decreased. The revenue amount from that levy remains the same. So for example, the last levy that was passed by the district was about 6.5 mils back in 2005, and that generated about $2 million of revenue for the district. That same levy was a continuing levy. We're still collecting it. We still get $2 million from it. It's now worth 5.1 mils. So that shows you how that millage gets adjusted each year. We still get $2 million. When we look back to 2005, we see that our salaries in our negotiated agreements have gone up about 40% across all of our unions. And we see that our premiums for our medical and dental coverage have increased almost 185% during that same time period. So our costs have gone up, our revenue remains consistent. Portage County, though, and Ravenna does have a very good collection rate, so when we develop our forecast, we can count on 97% of those revenues actually getting to us. We also factor in some prior fiscal year refunds, and the timing of those are sometimes difficult to determine when we submit applications to the state and to the Department of Medicaid for those reimbursements, but we can count on some of that revenue as well. Finally, we look at our expenses, make some assumptions. Based on our collective bargaining agreements, we know what the step and level increases will be through the collective bargaining agreement, and that is through 2025 for all three of our unions. Again, we look at the purchase service costs and what our increases are anticipated to be for special education services, utility costs, building maintenance, contracts, legal fees, insurance. Things like mileage and postage are also in purchase services, and we all know that those continue to go up. And then internet services as well. And then finally, again, to point out that capital costs are supported from those permanent improvement funds. So again, we don't typically include those other than maybe some small equipment purchases in our building budgets. These are some of the assumptions that went into the current fiscal year. The district, as a result of that 5-year forecast in previous years, had a reduction in force of about 14.5 FTEs, and that saved us about $635,000 in the current fiscal year. We also offered an employee separation plan as an effort to, again, reduce our costs. This gave some of our higher paid, more senior level teachers the opportunity to retire, and we replaced them with teachers on the lower end of the pay scale. So that difference in salary for those individuals gave us an estimated savings of about $263,000 this year. We had 5 teachers accept that separation plan. And then finally, a look at our medical and dental premiums that continue to go up. This year it was almost an 8% increase. We projected that going forward as well. And then again, our dental coverage went up about 6%. And in working with our cooperative that provides us with our medical and dental and our life insurance premiums, when we talk to them, we get feedback about the cost of claims increasing. So there are more claims and the claims are more expensive, largely as a result of COVID. So we're still including that in our forecast. And then finally, a premium holiday that gives the district a bit of a savings. So a premium holiday is the 1 month of the year when the district doesn't have to pay our medical and dental premiums to our cooperative. And if we get some information back from that cooperative that tells us that in fact our claims are lower and our premiums that we've paid have more than satisfied the claims that year, we could qualify for a second premium holiday. But that hasn't happened again since COVID, so we only forecast 1 premium holiday in there. And just to put that in context, our premiums for a single month are about $500,000. Finally, I just, again, wanted to address the permanent improvement funds. Books, buildings, buses. We have 2 permanent improvement levies in the district. One is a continuing levy that was approved back in 2006. It's 1.5 mils and it collects about $483,000. And then we have the 5-year renewable levy that was approved in 2017 and again renewed in 2021. We've just started collecting that. It was a voted 2.9 mils, and that's going to bring in about $940,000 this year. We spend that money on some of those summer projects that you see going on around the district campuses each year when we're repaving parking lots and we're replacing lights and we're improving our signage outside of our buildings. That's our summer projects. District-wide technology projects. Last year we installed new screens in all of our classrooms, interactive screens, and that was funded through our PI funds. We purchased some buses last year. We received a grant from the state of Ohio. That was that COVID era money, and it was in an effort to get kids farther apart on our buses. So they gave us some money that helped us purchase 3 buses, but we had to match that money from permanent improvement funds. We've also borrowed against this money for things like boiler upgrades and athletic complex improvements, and then we've borrowed against it for loans to purchase buses for a major fleet replacement or for that Chromebook refresh that we take on every few years. And then finally, our most recent project is going to be an elementary HVAC repair program. So we're about to enter into a loan agreement in order to finance some of those future PI funds again for boiler upgrades at our elementary schools. So that kind of wraps up some of the financial overview of the district, where we are, and the programs that fund our people and our programs. Thank you. I guess I can ask if there are any questions. Thank you.
We do want to ask Bill Wazowski and Connie Bennett to come on up. These are our, I'm supposed to be in front of the microphone. Bill Wisniewski is a former business operations director here at the district, and Connie is the president, right? CEO. of Portage Community Bank. So they are our levy chairs, and they just wanted to take a couple of minutes to give you an update.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for being here tonight. At our other meetings when we did the state, we had other people present. But on a very personal note, I was fortunate to be part of the district for 23 years. And as the talks were given, my mind kept going back to this facility, this building. I remember like 14 years ago, this new building was being built, and I remember the issues we had with this building. And it's interesting, when I look up, and I was looking up when the talk was given, the upper beam, it's in place here, all the school board members signed it. It was just like an initiation, how much part of what we are here. But I take a step back, and I'm so proud, and I think our community is so proud. Thank you for what you voted years ago to build this awesome facility, this campus. We have so much to be proud. It is a jewel of our community, so thank you. But then I show respect and thank you to Dr. Hebert and all the administrators in this room and who are not in this room because of the wonderful good things that are happening in the classroom with our kids. When I was listening, and I was so fortunate to be here for 23 years, the wonderful programs that are going on for our kids, my grandkids, your kids, and our educators, our teachers who are here, or retired members, there is so much happening, and you listen to the programs here. Dr. Hebert, you're right. You just couldn't let that just not go on. You made things happen for all of us. And in 2 months, our Ravenna people were going to be at the ballot again. We need this issue to pass. Every one of us, when we leave here, we're going to go shopping. We're going to look at our bills tomorrow. Just as we're faced with our expenses, the district is faced with that constantly. When you hear the costs of medical and the effects of COVID and all of our realities, this is what this levy will do to keep Ravenna going. All of those wonderful programs to touch our reality of our kids, we can't let that stop. The kids need it. And it's just not reaching out to the broken. It's enhancing and bringing out the skill sets. It's partnerships with the business community. We're fortunate to have Connie here, who's the CEO of our local community bank. It's people serving our neighbors. But it's unfortunate that this place isn't full right now to hear this message. Dr. Hebert and Candy, thank you. The fact is, so much good is happening here. We have a beautiful facility, but all of those things that were said here need to continue and to continue to grow, because I know their planning is to do more. So please, in any way, it is a sacrifice for us. And the numbers, Connie can share some of what that $100,000 home is, what it's going to cost. But talk it up, build it up, because it's so real for our community and our kids. So thank you.
Thank you, Bill. I won't keep you guys long, but I too want to echo all of the wonderful programs that Ravenna schools are doing. I think this is such a strong message for our community, and I too wish there were more people involved in this room today. But I do want to implore you that we do have the levy on the ballot in March. Again, so goes a good school district, so goes a good quality community. Cannot stress that enough. It also impacts all of our businesses in the community and all of our residences as well. So again, we are imploring all of you to come out and vote yes. And we would also love for any of you in this room today that would like to be involved in the levy committee, please reach out to Bill and I. We would really appreciate your help, whether it's walking the streets and hanging on door hangers on the houses, getting our message out in any way, shape, or form. Whatever your skill set is, we would definitely implore you to help us get the message out. Thank you.